Hey everybody, my name is Jason Morris, and this is a video demonstration of how to encode the rules to rock, paper, scissors in blocks.com. Now, encoding the rules to anything is a two-step process at least. You start by defining your ontology. That's the types of objects and properties that you want to be able to talk about. And then you set out what the actual rules are. So we're going to start by defining our ontology. And when you're defining an ontology, you're setting out some things that you know. So we know that in rock, paper, scissors, there is a thing called a player. And the only thing that we're really interested in knowing about players is what sign they threw. So we know a player has an attribute we're going to call throw. Now the throw is a sign, but we don't have sign yet. So we'll go here and we'll say we also know that sign is a category. Now we can grab sign from our known categories and stick it in there. What do we need to know about signs? A sign has other signs that it beats. Okay, and the only other category that we're going to need is games. So we'll say game is a category. And a game has players, which is a list of objects of the type player. And it also has a winner, which is a single object of the type player. Okay, so we're off to a good start here. Now, in the game of rock, paper, scissors, we can be confident that there are only ever going to be 3 signs. We know exactly what they are, and we know exactly what they beat. So we can go ahead and define them right away. We can say rock is an object, copy and paste that. Paper is an object, and scissors is an object. And then we can say that all 3 of those are in the category sign. Let's create 3 of these first. And then grab our 3 known objects. So rock is in the category sign, paper is in the category sign, scissors is also a sign. And then we just need to say which signs beat which other signs. So we're going to grab beats, we're going to put 3 of those in there, and we're going to say rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, and paper beats rock. So that's the ontology finished. Now we have to say what the rules are for rock, paper, scissors. And the only rule that we're really interested in is the one that determines what the winner of a game is. So go into rules, we're going to create a rule, and we're going to call it rock, paper, scissors winner. So the rule takes 2 parts, the conclusion first, and then the conditions. The conclusion is that someone is the winner of some game. So in this context, it's actually the game's winner is someone. So we're going to take a variable here. We don't know who this is going to be, but we're going to call it the game. I'm going to take another variable in here, and we're going to say first player. Now that's not first as in the order that they played. We're going to be referring to two players in the course of the rules here. The person who wins and the person who was beaten. So we want to be clear that the winner is the first person we're talking about. So how do we know that game was won by first player? Well, first thing we have to know that game is actually a game. Because signs and players don't have winners. So now we're going to need to say that this game has two players. So we're going to go into players, create two of these, put game in all of those places. We got first player here, and we'll call this one second player. Now, we want to make sure that those are both actual players. So we're going to put in two checks for those categories, and we'll make sure that those are both in the player category. Now we need to find out what these two players threw. So we're going to grab first player's throw and second player's throw. Like this. That's first player throw and second player throw. Okay. So far what we've said is if there's an object in the database that is in the category game, if it has two players, if both of those players are in the category player, and if the first one's throw is FP throw and the second one's throw is SP throw, whatever those happen to be, and now we have to say FP beats SP. So we go into beats, FP's throw beats SP's throw. Now what we could do is we could also say there's a requirement these two players not be the same player. But because we're expecting that every player is going to have only one throw, we know that even if this rule was comparing one player to itself, none of the throws actually beat themselves. So that won't give us any incorrect answers. So this will work for us. So now we need to create some test data and see if we can get it working. So let's set out what we know about our fact situation. So we're going to create a game, and we're going to call it the MIT Comp Law game. And we're going to say that that is an object in the category game. And we're going to say that it has two players. Of course, we haven't created the players yet, so let's do that. We're going to create two new objects in the database. Let's go with Bob and Jane. I'm going to say that they are both in the category player. So Bob is a player and Jane is a player. And now we can also say Bob is in that game and Jane is in that game. And now we just need to say what they threw. So let's say Bob here and Jane here. And let's have Bob throw paper. And let's have Jane throw scissors. Now, we created our ontology here on the left. We created our rules here in the middle. On the right, we've created a fact scenario. But when using blocks, this data would usually be created by your app and then sent to the blocks server. But this is one way that you can generate your own data and test it. And now we're going to create a query. And we're going to ask, is it true that the winner of the MIT Comp Law game is Jane? We go up here and run the code. It's going to take a couple of seconds to think about it. If we did everything right, it should say yes. Look at that. The answer is yes. Good on us. But let's just make sure. Let's ask it if Bob won the game. Now, if everything's working, it should say no. Great. It says no. So that seems to be working. It understands what the rules of the game are, and based on the facts that it gets from our system, it's able to use those rules in order to calculate who the winner is. But we don't have to ask specific questions. We can also ask questions that have variables in them. So what we can ask is, are there any games that have any winners? So instead of a yes/no question, this is a search question. And you can send that to blocks. And it should tell us that there is a game called MIT Comp Law game, and that the winner of that game is an object called Bob. Oh, excuse me, Jane. And there you go.